All right, so let me tell you this story. It's one of those things that started out so normal, so everyday, that I never could have guessed how it would end. It's about my husband, Mark, and how I discovered his secret affair. But trust me, by the time you hear the twist, you'll be as stunned as I was. It all started about 6 months ago. Mark had been acting off. You know how you can just feel when something's not right with someone you've been with for years? He was coming home late, always on his phone, and whenever I walked into the room, he'd quickly close his laptop or switch tabs like he was hiding something. At first, I brushed it off. Work stress, maybe. But then, one night, I saw a text pop up on his phone while he was in the shower. It was from someone named Alex. Just 2 words. Miss you. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but come on. Miss you? From someone I'd never heard of? I didn't confront him right away. Instead, I started paying closer attention. I checked his phone when he wasn't around, and sure enough, there were more texts from Alex. Flirty, intimate, things you shouldn't be saying to anyone but your spouse. I felt sick, but I also felt determined. I wasn't going to be the clueless wife. I needed proof. So I did what any rational person would do. I hired a private investigator. Her name was Claire, and she was sharp. Within a week, she had photos of Mark meeting someone at a cafe downtown. The person was always wearing a hoodie, face obscured, but it was clearly Alex. They'd meet for hours, laughing, talking, even holding hands once. Claire told me she'd dig deeper, but she warned me, sometimes the truth isn't what you think it is. I didn't understand what she meant at the time. I was too focused on the betrayal. Then one night, Mark came home and dropped a bombshell. He said he needed to go on a work trip for a few days. I knew it was a lie. Claire had already told me he'd booked a hotel under his name in the next city over. I decided to follow him. I had to see it for myself. The day he left, I packed a bag, told him I was visiting my sister, and drove to the hotel. I waited in the lobby, my heart pounding, until I saw him walk in with her, Alex. She was tall, blonde, beautiful, everything I wasn't. They checked in, and I felt like my world was crumbling. But then, something strange happened. Instead of going to their room, they went to the hotel bar. I followed, keeping my distance, and watched as they sat down with another man. I froze. Who was this guy? He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. They were all talking intensely, like they were planning something. My mind raced. Was this some kind of threesome? Was Mark into something I didn't know about? I couldn't make sense of it. The next day, I confronted Claire. I showed her the photos I'd taken and demanded answers. She hesitated, then said, "There's something you need to know. Alex isn't who you think she is." She handed me a file. Inside was a background check on Alex. Her full name was Alexandra Carter, and she wasn't just some random woman. She was a private investigator, too. I was stunned. "What the hell is going on?" I asked. Claire took a deep breath and said, "Your husband isn't having an affair. He's being blackmailed." Turns out, Mark had gotten himself into some serious trouble at work. He'd been embezzling funds, and this other man, the one I saw at the hotel, was his boss. Alex was working for the boss, gathering evidence to ruin Mark unless he paid up. Mark had been meeting her to try and negotiate, to beg for more time. He hadn't told me because he was ashamed, because he didn't want me to know what he'd done. I didn't know whether to be relieved or furious. On one hand, he wasn't cheating. On the other, he'd been lying to me for months, risking our future, our savings, everything. I went home and confronted him. He broke down, crying, begging for forgiveness. He said he'd been trying to fix it on his own, that he never meant to hurt me. But here's the twist, the part that still gives me chills. Remember how I said the other man looked familiar? Well, I finally figured out why. He wasn't just Mark's boss. He was also the man who'd been sending me anonymous messages for weeks, warning me to stay out of it if I knew what was good for me. He'd been playing both sides, manipulating Mark and me, trying to scare me into silence while he destroyed my husband. In the end, I took control. I went to the police, handed over all the evidence Claire and I had gathered, and let the law handle it. Mark lost his job, but he avoided jail time by cooperating. We're still together, trying to rebuild trust, but it's not easy. The craziest part? Alex, the woman I thought was stealing my husband, ended up helping us. She felt guilty for her role in the blackmail and testified against Mark's boss. She even apologized to me. So yeah, my husband's secret affair wasn't what I thought it was. It was darker, more complicated. And in the end, it taught me something I'll never forget. Sometimes the truth is stranger and more dangerous than any lie.